Hello and welcome. You have joined a murder tour of the house on Haunted Hill. But which one? Yes, it's spooky season, and much like how Vincent Price offered people, I'm not offering you money. I'm not offering you anything. Actually, I'd really like it if you could like and subscribe. But we're going to talk about William Castle's House on Haunted Hill, the 1959 original film, this spooky season, which is celebrating its 65th anniversary this year. Good God. All right. Anyway, so this is House on Haunted Hill. It stars Vincent Price, and it's directed by William Castle. And there's a lot of really interesting things about this film. First of all, I just wanted to pose the question about audio description for this, because I always think it's interesting. There are always these people that are trying to break into the audio description community, because I'm a blind film critic, by the way, and in case you're new to my channel. And this is public domain. The film, its rights were not, its films were not, its copyright was not renewed. So it's literally anybody can use it. So if you go to IMDb and look at this film, you'll notice it's on every streaming service possible. Everyone has it. They're all like, oh my God, House on Haunted Hill. Because it's free content for them. It's content that they don't have to license. They can just put it up there. Supposedly this results in some lower quality, rips of the thing, because nobody owns it, so nobody can come after it, which means I would think that if you were somebody who was trying to strike out and make your own audio description, or show the world that you could do audio description, I would think public domain movies would be the way to go. So I did find this with audio description, which is why I'm posing that question of, could more people be doing other public domain movies? Like Charade is famously also in that same boat. So who knows? But yeah, this is William Castle's original version. Is actually pretty short, all things considered, especially for a film of its ilk. He used all sorts of techniques. He was very much like a showman back in the day. He was like the P.T. Barnum of horror films. He knew how to rouse an audience and get people interested. He tried to launch a marketing campaign with images that of 1959 would have never landed in a newspaper. So then after newspapers rejected his advertising, he said the movie was too scary to advertise. So it just sort of, held up that element as part of the film. He also devised this plan. We had all sorts of gimmicks back in the day, of everything from smell-o-vision to 3D, and just a whole bunch of things that were happening back in the day with when you would go to theaters. But he had this box that popped a skeleton out. There's a certain scene in the film where a skeleton kind of pops out and flies. And he actually flew a real plastic skeleton in the theater, on a wire that they had to set up. Because this was back in 1959. Multiplexes were not a thing. At best, you had maybe a 2-screen theater in a major city. But most of these were just one screen, the massive sort of Orpheum fantastical theaters that were trying so hard to sort of keep the couple that are still out there historically alive, just so that we have some of them out there. I think Netflix owns one of them, actually. I think Netflix actually paid to refurbish one, and it's where they release a lot of their films. So yeah, they had a box with a wire, and the skeleton flew out at the audience. So he tried all sorts of tactics to try to get people. The thing is that I look at this film and I go, it's one of those films that you really have to just sort of appreciate and put yourself in the mindset of what was 1959. And the funny thing is, like a year later, Psycho comes, right? So Psycho kind of Hitchcock kind of re-up, like takes over horror from William Castle and says, "All right, so you did a shticky thing. I'm going to make a legitimately fantastic film that people are going to remember, and it's not going to be like a just like a genre film. It's just going to be one of those films that people talk about, like because of how good it is on any level, not just as a horror film." So, but for what William Castle was doing and for the other horror movies that he would go on to make, uh, this is kind of a little classic. It's kind of a little thing. It's very cheesy. It's really weird to watch as a blind person with the ghost because I kind of remember, like it's like I kind of have seen and sort of remember this. I think I caught it, like maybe a little bit of it on TV at one point. And the effects for of course at the time I was like, this is really silly. Like I can't do this. Um, you feel at different stages in life, you feel different ways about things. So, um, and I don't think I watched it from the beginning. I think it was one of those things where it was just like a midnight movie that was on maybe Sci-Fi Channel. So, uh, yeah, it just wasn't really. I kind of remember the effects look kind of cheesy, and you're like, well, it's an old movie. They're supposed to look kind of cheesy, I guess. 1959. It wasn't particularly scary, and I was already younger, so like I was easy. I could have been easily frightened by it, but I wasn't. It looked weird. So it's really hard to translate that through audio description. So, but of the two House on Haunted Hill versions, this is the one that you could potentially find a version of it with audio description. The other one, the remake, which a lot of people don't like, I do. So check out my review of that because I'm pairing these two because they're both actually celebrating anniversaries. Um, the other one doesn't have audio description. So, but yeah, we start out with Vincent Castle doing the breaking the fourth wall thing that Alfred Hitchcock was so famous for. He'd always like talk to his audience ahead of time and invite them in, sort of like, come with me on this journey. So Vincent Castle is sort of like talking and explaining the premise of the movie to people, of what it is that he's doing. And he's like, I've invited 5 people. And he tells you who each of them are. It's in some ways, this is what makes it campy because like any other film would have actually figured out how to write a script that would have revealed to you who these people were without needing Vincent Price's narration exposition dump at the beginning of the film. But then it would lose sort of its shtick, like the thing that makes it what it is, the thing that makes it this sort of like memorable thing, because most films don't do this. It's really interesting to see Vincent Price do what sort of Alfred Hitchcock was so famous for, especially on his TV series, introducing things before they happened. But he also did it for movies too. So I think I didn't hate it too much. Uh, it's hard for me to take this film seriously, like in the genre of House on Haunted Hill, and especially being a blind film critic with audio description coming in. And the person doing the audio description was way too delightful for this. This is why sometimes I talk about casting and I go, you have to, uh, you really have to pick the right voice, the right tone for a film, in order to land it. This person is, I don't know, very upbeat, optimistic, would be great on romantic comedies, kids films, really any comedy, but lighter material for sure. And there really isn't anything about this that works, even if you're trying to, even though it's not particularly scary, so you don't need one of those like dark voices. But you do need something that either leans in on the campy angle of things or leans in on the more serious tone of the film. You can't have the other way of it where it seems like the film is so inconsequentially non-scary that there's this delightful voice that could also be narrating Blue's Clues at the same time. Like it's choices. Um the acting in here is surprisingly better than I would have remembered it being. I love the screams. I love that the film like has this scream like right near the beginning of the film that just it's like the greatest jump scare because this girl. We talk about scream queens and we use that term a lot and we apply it to people who I don't even know if they've ever screamed in a movie before. It's just like this term that we use that now applies to people who just do a lot of horror movies. But like whoever does this scream is the scream queen because the scream is so effective and it's like it, it is absolutely blood curdling. It is like this girl is in danger. I mean, like I believe her scream is excellent. She has one of the um, most committed screams I think I've ever heard from a singular person in a film. It's very sort of like, yeah, she's in danger. Somebody help her. Can we get to her? Um, so if you want to watch this, I mean, it's going to be hard to sort of ever. It's one of those things where we almost have to have like an experience to fully explain and get into almost like director's commentary audio description to fully describe what it is that you're seeing and how William Castle shot the ghosts, how he made them look, because the audio description really doesn't know anything. Right now it's just like, So, uh, yeah, uh, we got to do more if we're going to do something like this because it doesn't really do anything for the film. It doesn't really help the film together. And if you're watching this film, the only good thing that I can say about this film is that because the film is painfully obvious in many places, like with Vincent Castle literally telling you, uh, Vincent Price literally telling you what is happening in the film, um, it's it's not hard to follow because of all the exposition, and it's really short, so it's not like a time waster if you wanted to just try it on your own. But you're gonna miss a lot of the ghosts, and people you'll be like, "What are they screaming at?" I don't know. Something's on there. Um, like the skeleton reveal, but it's a very different film from the 1999 version, which goes straight horror with it. This film ends up being sort of more of a mystery, and that's what's kind of cool about it is that William Castle basically made both a horror movie, but he also just made a mystery movie at the same time. He made this like, is everything what it seems? Who knows? You're going to have to watch the movie to find out. um, and made a lot of promises, but then twisted a lot of things on its head. It's a lot better crafted than I think people give it credit for. It's hard to kind of watch if you're used to modern horror. If you're not ready for a William Castle feature, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to recommend this film. I think it's a very specific taste of people who will like this. I didn't even really love it, but I appreciate it for what it is and for the time period and everything that came from. And I see the little tricks that William Castle's doing. It's sort of like how nowadays we don't like circuses because of uh, we all realize that what's happening to like animals and stuff in the shows probably we shouldn't be, but snapping whips at lions and stuff, but having them jump through fire, whatever, stuff like that. So once you sort of take that stuff away from it and you're like, well, did can we still appreciate it for what it is? I think people still appreciate circuses because of the showmanship of what the whole thing, the spectacle. And so I think that's what William Castle's thing is. It's like he's a showman, and this is a spectacle, and you're showing up for that. But how to translate that in audio description, I think, is a greater question, a broader question. So this is the kind of thing where it's like anybody could put audio description on this, I think. Don't quote me on that. But it is in public domain. So it's sort of like if you have a novel that is in public domain, technically you could record an audiobook of it. Like, which is why if you find some of those older works, there are like a bajillion audiobooks of of those those classics. So because it's like nobody owns the rights to it, so everybody has recorded an audiobook version for those. So I think that could be this. I mean, this film is literally on every like streaming service possible. It was on, I don't know, it's and that's just the ones that IMDb tracks. I mean, it's not on like Disney Plus, but like other than that, it was just basically like, well, everybody's. Sadly, not Netflix either, because Netflix really doesn't like to put old stuff on there. Like, that's a hot take that we need to talk about. Why doesn't Netflix use old content? Do you ever notice that? Like, about Netflix's stuff, they really don't put a lot of older stuff up there. Like, right now, they have Psycho and, like, Jaws. But, like, when you look at their TV shows, they don't really have TV shows, like, before... definitely before like 1980. I think maybe they only have like one or two shows that are like 80s shows, if that. They really don't do anything that is old. It's very rare that they put any classics up on their streaming service. So they'll do some 80s movies, rarely a 70s movie, and then they kind of stop there. It's very odd how that works. But so House on Haunted Hill, you can check it out or not check it out, but I think if you're trying to like be a film buff, I think you have to see something of William Castle's. Especially if you're leaning horror, like I feel like William Castle he's very shticky, but he's not quite to the point of, this is not Planet 9 from Outer Space. So there's that too. So I should do that at some point for a spooky season, Planet 9 from Outer Space. Anyway, watch this wherever. Tubi, I don't know. It's Hulu, I don't know. Everybody has it. So pick your streaming service and check this out if you want. But it won't have audio description. You have to kind of find it out there to see who decided to create their own homegrown audio description for this. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'm giving the original House on Haunted Hill, I don't even fully, like, it's a weird grade to give it. But the thing is, I do actually like the other movie better. And we'll talk about that in the other review. So check out my other review of the 1999 House on Haunted Hill. But I'm going to give this a B. I don't want to disrespect it, but I also, to try to acknowledge that it's a great film is a bit of a stretch, and to acknowledge that it's like one of my favorite films would be a bit of a stretch. But to acknowledge it's like cinematic place, I think there is a place for it. It may not be the first horror film that you go to, but it should still be a horror film on a list. Like, people who do horror movie podcasts and who do specifically horror genre stuff should still be including, if not this, then at least a William Castle film of some kind. So, but this is the one I wanted to talk about because both films actually happen to be on an anniversary year, surprisingly. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.